Next speaker is Richard.
Yep.
Take it away, son.
Thank you very much. My name's Richard Dunbar. I'm a councillor from Bradford and the council spokesperson on problem gambling, and I'll give you a bit of context of why I got involved in the campaign, then raise a few points on what I think should be done at a local government level to tackle problem gambling. And I think that's the first point to say in terms of the title, the lessons learned from the fight against fixed odds betting terminals, is that it's opened up a wider debate about how we tackle problem gambling, and that's got to be welcomed. So in context, I'll give you a bit of about Bradford. So we've got 62 betting shops in Bradford. In terms of losses, by 2015 it was 10.6 million a year, the sixth most profitable city for the industry outside of London. And we've also in the city centre, quite a small city centre really, we've got 12 betting shops within a 250 metre radius, which is absolutely astonishing. And we know, all the facts show us and the research shows, that where there's areas of high levels of deprivation, unemployment and ethnic diversity, we know people are more likely to be problem gamblers. So that in Bradford and in other cities causes us a problem. And I think Tom was absolutely right last week when he said he explained it as a country's hidden epidemic, because I've said previously, if this was a physical disease sweep in the country, the government would be out throwing loads of money and resources into it, but I don't think they're taking action nowhere near quickly enough, and it's only going to take a Labour government to do that. From a local government perspective, some of the challenges we faced is when a local council, as often happens, might reject an application for a betting shop, what usually happens is the industry then goes to the planning inspectorate, and more often than not, that gets overturned. So actually we've got limited powers, and despite what the government says about giving us more powers in terms of licensing and planning functions, I can tell you for certain, from a local authority perspective, that has not happened. Do you know, there's another battle in Bradford and in other cities on an almost monthly basis about stopping betting shops from opening. And so what I'll come to is three things I think what we could do to help local government in terms of tackle problem gambling. The first one, we definitely need more power in terms of from a licensing and a planning perspective to restrict excessive clustering. Like I said in Bradford, 12 in a really short radius, that causes the problems. We don't have the legislation at the moment to do that, so it was really pleasing to hear what Tom had to say on that. The second thing is we need more resources for planning functions, because since 2010, over 50% of our planning resources within local councils has gone. So that's less officers to service appeals, and because of the cuts to legal departments within councils, we can't always afford to send somebody to the appeals and fight our corner, even if we know we're right 99% of the time, yeah? So that's a problem. Another thing as well, it was referred to earlier, is that the money for treatment and care of gambling really does need to come through local authorities to public health departments, because as local authorities we know our populations the best. We know what the issues are with what groups of people, and at the current moment we've got GamCare commissioned to do this. And I've got to be very honest, I don't think it's an effective way of commissioning service and dealing with treatment and care. And actually, we need to, like I say, go to local authorities, give the money to public health departments, and let us be able to do that. And also, something else, and Carolyn's raised it in the House, very pleased to hear it the other week, about the research around suicides in relation to problem gambling. I've had somebody come to me recently who said that because he had several mental health issues which were exacerbated, he's certain, by his problem gambling addictions. And what that led him to do, it got all too much one day after he'd lost quite a bit of money, to a point where he took his car out, nearly crashed it because he wanted to die. And what a shame on our nation that that's allowed to happen. And the real reason why I first got involved is I'm a youth worker by trade traditionally. And a young man came up to me about 2 years ago, quite flustered, and I've not seen him for a couple of years. It was like, oh, Richard, I need your help. I'm like, what's the matter? And he basically said he just got his wage, done quite well from a problem family, but done really well for himself. Really proud of him. But he got addicted to fob teas. He just lost £1,000 in about half an hour. £1,000. This is a lad who hadn't got much anywhere, and he needed help and support. I started to look for it, it wasn't there. You know, and that's not just me. There's other people, other local councillors doing that. Vince, my 5 colleagues here from Bradford will have had similar stories. It's an absolute shame on this nation, and the government have not acted quick enough. And like I say, I think these policies, what Tom announced last week, and all the campaigning Matt and Callum's done, is very, you know, we should applaud that. And you know what? We need to get behind these proposals, because our young people, because that's another factor, you know, being young's one of the biggest risk factors of becoming a problem gambler. And in Bradford, we'll be the youngest city in Europe by 2020. So that poses us with massive issues. So they're the 3 things. We need to restrict excessive clustering, we need more resources for planning functions, and we need more money for treatment and care to go in to local authority, public health departments who know the problems in the areas. But the last point to make is a bit of a plea to any councillors and local authority representatives in the room, is that the LGA a few months back, early this year, stated that the statement of gambling principles, which all authorities have, they usually sit on a shelf getting dusty, as they have for many years. There's a duty on them to be reviewed by January. And what I would urge people to do, because it's usually talking about the licensing function a lot, I would urge you to try and work together across departments with public health, make it a public health document. In Bradford, we've got that. Our public health teams are in there, our social care teams are involved with that. We're going to be doing all sorts of conferences in Bradford on this with young people and all sorts of others. So I would urge you, if your CEO and your leader of the council haven't been active on this, make sure they pull the finger out, get this, because actually if we don't do this, it's going to mean more people in local government are going to suffer as a result. So I'll leave it there. And let's make sure we get that government out so Labour government can deal with this hidden problem. Thank you.
An off-the-shelf plan that on day 1 of Jeremy Corbyn being Prime Minister, the Secretary of State for DCMS can go to Parliament and say, here's a bill we want enacted. It's going to be quite hard because there's a lot of technical detail in there, but that's where I want us to be. And I want the Labour Party to do everything it can in the run-up to that to force the government to implement some of the suggestions for change that we've made. Because if Theresa May takes us to 3 more years, there are going to be many millions more people in this country that are affected by a failure of regulation as it stands. You know, let me just go back to the starting point that started me on this journey. The Gambling Commission tell us there are 430,000 gambling addicts in this country. 25,000 of them are 16 or under. And there are 2 million people sitting behind that 500,000 who have problem gambling, who could slip into gambling addiction. And all of us here, particularly the councillors who've had surgeries, we've seen families destroyed by gambling addiction. And that's a blight on a community. It can stop people can lose their jobs, and they can even slip into crime and go to prison as they're chasing the next bad debt. As socialists, we don't want to see that. We want people to be able to enjoy recreational gambling like we pictured it when we were kids. And we want to make sure that people are not exploited. And without the work of you in this room, without the work of Carolyn and Matt and the Campaign for Fairer Gambling, we wouldn't be anywhere near that now. But I think we're on the cusp of change and rebalancing the market in gambling in Britain for good. And I'd just like to thank you all for being part of that.